I started my career at Colorado State University 35 years ago this fall. And I was in what was then called the Speech Communication Department, and my office was on the third floor of Eddy. It was a floor we shared with the English department. Back then, the second floor housed the School of Social Work, and in what we jokingly referred to as the garden level, you could find the Department of Philosophy and Foreign Language and Literatures. Eventually, social work moved on to another building. Speech communication moved down to the second floor, which allowed English to commandeer the entire third floor. Standing here today, I think about all the students who have wandered the halls of Eddy over these years, clear back to the early 60s when the building first opened its door. Those students have represented every college in the university. Now, a lot of them were taking liberal arts courses, Spanish, public speaking, composition, logic, and many others. But some of them were taking courses taught by faculty members in other colleges, because these classrooms are what we call general assignment classrooms. And so this building really has been a site for everybody on this campus. The building was also used for a number of years for Preview CSU, which was an earlier iteration of our orientation program. I can't resist telling you that when I came to Colorado State in 1969 and came to Preview, Willard Eddy was my advisor. As I look at this wonderful new entrance, which really is my favorite part of this building, I recall an incident that probably was almost 3 decades ago. I was in the departmental main office and noticed that the 5-year-old son of one of our students had been sitting there for quite some time. His dad was engaged in a very lengthy conversation with one of the faculty, and I knew both the dad and the boy. So asking the father if it was okay, I went to the little boy and said, "How about you and I walk over to the student center and we'll get a treat?" So we made our way down the steps and through this narrow entrance that used to be for Eddy. And this overly polite little boy then opened the heavy glass door and held it for me. Well, just about then, classes let out. So he not only held it for me, but he held it for probably about 400 students that went through that choke point that it took to get out of Eddy back in those days. When the last student was through the door, he looked up at me with these beautiful brown eyes and he went, "Phew, that was a lot." Well, that pretty well sums up my memories of Eddy. I remember sitting in my office and hearing Bob Zellner in the English department bellow at me from across the hall about any number of topics, mostly in disagreement. I also remember the quiet, wise voices. Jim Irvin in speech communication, Rosemary Whitaker in English, Jan Benson in philosophy. I remember passionate voices like Marian Freeman in foreign languages, Jack Gravely in speech, Dan Lyons in philosophy. I remember wondering what color Carol Mitchell's hair would be that day, or what language I would hear being practiced by the students that sprawled over on the first floor south hallway that I had to step over and around to get through, or what amazingly cheerful greeting I would get from Paola Malpezzi Price. I also remember coming to campus the day after the flood to see if I could help, and looked down at the garden level where the water now was about a foot from the ceiling tiles, and seeing all sorts of things like computers bobbing there on the surface. I remember the post-flood move of foreign languages to the Clark Building and philosophy up to the second floor of Eddy. I remember faculty meetings all over the building debating all sorts of topics, including whether the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences should quit becoming a list and become the College of Liberal Arts. I remember when the beautiful and touching Friendship Garden replaced an eyesore of a weed patch that for years was the courtyard of that building. I remember many, many things. So I think back those 3 decades and I think, you were right back then, little Michael Ortega. Phew, that was a lot. So to the current and future students, faculty, and staff who will occupy this building, I leave you with an exhortation. The new College of Liberal Arts brand statement, which is "Liberate your state of mind," describes what's been happening in Eddy for decades and for centuries in the liberal arts. My exhortation: carry on.